Well, good evening, everybody, and welcome to another great show of the Van Buren Variety Show. I am Bob Van Buren, your host. Glad you're here. In case you're tuning in for the first time, I am here once a week, and I interview an interesting guest about a very interesting topic. It could be the person's profession, their hobby, a special interest, how-to segment, and I even have some musical guests coming up. So you want to stay tuned to that. Glad you're here tonight. I hope everybody's had a great week so far. If you haven't subscribed already, make sure you hit that subscribe button for Van Buren Variety, because then you'll see some very interesting guests and maybe some a spinoff coming up pretty soon, hopefully. So stay tuned to that. Again, hope you've had a great week. As you can see, St. Patrick's Day is right around the corner. So I'm already kind of wearing my greens. So yeah, there it is. So you know, I'm usually the one that gets pinched when I forget to wear greens. So I'm prepared right now. So I don't know. Would you mind being pinched if someone came up to you and pinched? Guess that's a matter of opinion, wouldn't it? Anyway, hope you've had a great week. I certainly have. And I've got a great guest for you tonight about a great, interesting topic. Poems in my life. I've never had them published. Never really was, unfortunately, that serious. Never know what would happen if I would publish it. But we all have great ideas, things that would make an excellent story. And it's even better if you can be your own publisher. And I don't mean just self-publishing, but be an independent publisher where you have a little bit more say into your work. And that's exactly what we're going to be talking about tonight. And that's the guest that I have lined up for all of you. So let me bring him on now. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to introduce you to James Hill, an independent publisher and also a writer, and we're going to be talking about some of his great books on this show. So, James, welcome to the Van Buren Variety Show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. How are you today? And I
Uh,
like the green, even though somebody said it's mint.
you know what? You bring up a good topic because I have a really good friend who's he is my brother, as far as I'm concerned. Um, Not to get off topic, but about a year ago, I showed him some material. He was looking for something green. And he said, that's not green. It was exactly the color of my shirt. And so, but I won't mention who that name, who he was, but it was like, Tex, Tex, Tex. Sorry. Found that hard to swallow. But anyway, he insisted it wasn't green. So
Well,
now you've
mint
got
is
good company.
green. It's a shade of green.
Thank you. Did you hear
Yeah.
that? Text. Well, let's get right into the topic here. How long have you been a writer, like a professional writer?
About, nearly 10 years now, professionally. It published in like 2013, I think.
Really?
My first book, which was Killer with a Heart. So that one. And I published my sci-fi. That's a crime novel. And I
Mm-hmm.
published my sci-fi Pegasus, A Journey to New Eden. So I published both of those 2013. So been at it
Wow.
for a little bit.
Let me go in. I got several questions, but I want to promote your products, ladies and gentlemen. This is some of his books that he's written. As you can see, it's a three-part series. There's going to be more, but you got the Killer at Heart, the Killer with Three Heads, and what's the other one? I can't read the one from here.
Killer with Black Blood.
Okay.
So
Uh, Without telling us all the details, can you give us a synopsis of some of these books that you've written, this
sure,
series?
I'll give you a synopsis of the series. It's
Okay.
about the mafia and gangs in New York. It starts off in the 70s when two guys, two teenagers, kind of hook up, and Mojo, Morris Johnson, he's a gang leader from the South Bronx, and he hooks up with his friend Nicky Nails Roxy, who's the son of a mobster, mafia. And so Nicky is the kind of guy who comes up with plans, and then not always the best of plans. So
Mm.
him and Mojo, they kind of work out these plans. So the story starts with Nicky deciding to rob another mob family, and that's Killer with a
Oh,
Heart.
wow. That
And
sounds intense.
yeah, and so as you will figure, things go horribly wrong with the plans, and they spark a mob war. And then from there on, it's how these two grow up to be international criminals. So
Oh
that's
wow.
what the Killer series is about. It's about the arc of these guys becoming international criminals.
Now this looks like a trilogy, but is there going to be any future books after this or along this series?
Yes, there's one more book that's in the hands of my editor right now,
Uh
so it
huh.
should be coming out sometime this year.
Okay.
It's called Killer with Black. No, wait a second. Killer with Black Blood is out. That came out last year. Killer with Ice Eyes.
Killer with ice eyes. Oh
Ice
wow.
Eyes. Yes. As you can see, every one of these books has a body part.
I can see that. Yeah. Like wow.
So it should be out sometime, maybe summer or fall. Um, I'm in line with all my other writers. As you said, I'm an independent publisher.
Mm-hmm.
So as a publisher, I publish other people. I got about 8 or so other writers, and some of them are coming out with their second books and things like that. And so I have to fall in line with them. I don't get preferential treatment because it's my publishing company. As a writer, I'm just one of the other writers.
Sure.
Yeah.
You're a client as well.
Yes.
In fact, why don't we kind of get into that? We've had other authors on this show. So can you tell, like the audience watching now, what is the difference between an author who is self-published and an author who has an independent publisher? What's the difference?
All right. As a self-publisher author, you usually only publish yourself. You wear all the hats, so you have to get the editor, you have to get the cover designer, you have to get somebody to do the formatting. If you don't do it all yourself, which you probably shouldn't do, at least not the editing. If you
Mm-hmm.
don't get anybody else, get yourself a good editor.
Okay. Remember
Um,
that.
yes. So, but you wear all the hats. So, and you usually only publish yourself. That's why it's self-publishing.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
As an independent publisher, we kind of like follow the same as any other traditional publisher. We pay royalties to our authors, but we take on all of those other jobs of editing, design, graphic design,
True.
putting the book together. All that stuff falls on me as the publisher. And of course, I hire graphic
Sure.
designers, I hire editors, you know. But the author doesn't have to do anything. All he does is write the book. We
He's
go through
done.
editing and all that kind of stuff. He's never done. But you go through all the editing and everything, and then because we're not one of the big five, we don't have the budget of one of the big five. Uh,
Sure.
you
Mm-hmm.
have to do some of the promotion yourself. We
I
we
see.
promote you, but we also lean heavily on our authors to promote themselves. So,
Sounds
and they'll
fair.
be on shows like yours talking
Sure.
about their book.
That's great. So I got a few questions for you because not only are you a writer, it's you are also a publisher. So man, you're probably constantly juggling, aren't you? You got all this
Oh
stuff
yeah,
going. So see how you do it. But here's one of
I
the
don't
questions.
sleep much.
Oh, I'm sure sleep. What's that, right? So let me ask you this: what do you think about the current publishing market?
The current publishing market is wide open. It's
Is
like the
it?
wild, wild west. It broke open when Amazon got into when Amazon was created. Because as you
Mm-hmm.
know, Amazon was created as a book selling platform.
Sure.
So it kind of like opened the market. And I mean, there's already been millions of people trying to publish, but you had all the gatekeepers keeping out a majority of people from publishing. So when Amazon became a place where you can go and actually publish your book, then that opens up the gates to everybody who has an idea or wants to write a book.
Sure.
They can go ahead and they can do it. So self-publishing became really easy. Before that, you had vanity publishers, you had your independent publishers,
Yeah.
you still had the major publishing houses, but it also lowered the price of actually putting out books because as an independent or as a vanity, you had to buy all these books, and
Mm-hmm. Oh, sure.
to publish them, and that was a major no-no for a lot of people. Like I publish a book, but I got to buy 10,000 copies, and
Yeah. Oh, wow.
people would think about that, and they was like, "Well, no, because can I sell 10,000 copies?" Is the next question,
That's it.
you know. But then with Amazon and with what they call print on demand, which became the next biggest thing after the Amazon revolution, became print on demand, where the publishing and printing companies will print one copy if you like, 1,000 copies, whatever you demand. It became much cheaper to produce books. And so the marketplace is saturated, as it always has been,
Mm-hmm.
with writers and with books and everything. But it's also a little bit dangerous because not everybody, like I said, number one, get yourself a good editor.
I've
Because
heard
a
that.
lot of
Yes.
people write bad books. And it's
Yeah.
not that they don't, not that it's a bad idea or a bad story, but you can never really edit yourself. I'm a programmer also, computer programmer.
Oh, wow.
And
Good
we do peer
profession.
review. Yeah. And we do peer review because when you write a program, you know what the program's supposed to do. Your peer review, the other programmers go in there and try to break your code because they're going to do things that you didn't code for. And believe me, people will try that.
Sounds like a software tester or quality assurance.
Yes, yes. So that's what an editor does. An editor goes through your work, and they find the mistakes that you won't. And I happen to know I needed a very good editor because I'm terrible at English.
Spelling's not my high point at
Oh
all.
no, I was very happy when spell checker came along and all that.
Oh, me too. Yes, I found that as a great invention like GPS. So.
Oh yeah, I found that really helpful when I bought a boat.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah.
I'm sure. So what you're saying is that publishing today, if someone has a book they want to publish, it's easier now today than it has been 10, 20, 30 years ago.
Yes,
Oh.
absolutely.
So authors, did you hear that? If you got something you're sitting on, this would be a good time to publish your work if you've got an idea or something out there. So.
Yeah, get to work. Don't wait. Don't wait 30 years. I waited like 20 years or so before I published my first book. Pegasus, I actually wrote back in the 80s, and
Oh,
I
wow.
published it in 2013 because I thought, well, you know what? Everything is now coming true in that book. I should put it out.
It sounds interesting. So we kind of covered this. That was kind of my next question. Or do you have anything to add? My next question was, what are some pitfalls that new authors should avoid?
Self-editing is number one. I'm going to beat
Self-editing.
that horse to death.
Okay.
Self-editing is number one. Number two, do not write the epic 10,000 page tome of the greatest book anybody will ever read.
War and
Don't
Peace,
make
basically,
that,
right?
Don't make that your first book. Okay, work up to the 10,000 pages because the price of publishing may have dropped, but it hasn't dropped that much. Paper still costs.
Mm-hmm.
So if you write a huge, humongous, bullet stopper, I call them bullet stoppers, you hold it up when someone's taking a shot at you.
I think about War and Peace, that big
Yeah.
book,
Yeah. But, that wasn't his first book, War and Peace.
It wasn't. Yeah.
He worked his way up to that. So as a new writer, work your way up to War and Peace. From number one, you want people to know who you are before, because they're going to have to plop down, hard-earned cash to get that book. And they're
Establish
going to
yourself,
like
basically.
you before they go trudging through your, epic novel of, 100, 200, 300,000 words,
Sure.
They're going to really have to like you to spend that kind of time. And it's different now when people say, well, they had these books before. Before they didn't have TV. They didn't have radio. They didn't have anything else to do but read. So, yeah, a big tome like that was fine because, if it took them a year to read, that was fine. They didn't have other things to do as far as entertainment was. So, entertainment-wise, books were it. But now people have all kinds of other entertainments.
Yeah.
So who's going to sit down and read your bullet stopper book?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, don't write that book first. Work your way up to it. Plus, on your first book, it's probably not going to be your best work if you try to fill something like that. It's like anything else. Practice.
Makes perfect.
Yeah. Let's just say that. Practice makes perfect. Yeah. I was going to say improve or,
Well, that too. Yeah.
And as you work your way up to it, you'll get to those more lengthier stories where the story will be really good.
So just
if you do have a real long story you want to take,
Hmm.
make it a series. You know,
That's true. Yeah. Uh-huh.
break it up, make it a series, and dish it out a little at a time so people can read about the characters and the storyline. And as they go on, and you'll find out that as you write the next book, you're in the series, your ideas will get better. You'll improve on the storyline as it goes.
And probably the confidence level too,
Right.
too. So, all right. Well, that's good information. Yeah, you don't want to, like I can use the analogy, don't build your dream home the first thing. Just start off kind of small and work your way up, basically.
Yes.
Okay, how about this? Another question. What are the challenges of writing in different styles and genres? Like, for example, I mentioned Stephen King. Most of his has been, horror or a thriller, but there's, so how does the author, what are the challenges of writing in different genres, whether romance, thriller, comedy, etc.?
Well, the first challenge is knowing the genre that you're going to write in,
Okay.
because it's very different when you pick up sci-fi than mystery,
Mm-hmm.
romance. In fact, I went to a romance convention, and I had a completely different idea what romances actually was. When I sat in that convention, I was like, "Oh, that makes sense, yeah." Because I'm not a romance writer or a romance reader per se. Now, my editor, she was a romance writer, and I picked her up as an editor
Oh,
because she
good.
wrote very good books, and I read her romance, and I was like, "Well, this is great." You know, I'm going to get her to edit for me,
Wow.
and so
Hmm.
that's how I got her. She's Athena Parrott. She lives in South Africa, and she was teaching school English in South Africa.
Mm-hmm.
So I was like, okay, and made a deal with her that she would be my editor and edit for my company, and of course I would publish her other books.
Mm-hmm.
So and plus pay her.
Oh, sure, Bobby. There's the good part right there.
Yeah, and of course pay her. But but so you have to really know the genre you're going to write in. Now I write in three different genres because I consider myself a sci-fi writer first and foremost. I wrote a lot of short story sci-fi stuff. Read a lot of sci-fi short stories. I used to love Asimov, um, modern science,
Mm-hmm.
all kinds of scientific stuff. So I consider myself a sci-fi writer. I wrote one sci-fi book so far. I'm going to go back to that because I got dragged into this killer series, like I said, I already knew it was going to be 4 books. So as I started writing and writing and writing, it's like, well, I got to get this story out. So, but you have to know, the language. You have to know the style of the genre. You have to know what's kind of acceptable and what's not acceptable. The
Mm-hmm.
voice that you want to cover. Mysteries, crime stories, they have a different voice, a different style than sci-fi. Sci-fi is usually written in third person or past tense.
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Mysteries, crime dramas are written in first person. A lot of them. Um,
Oh, see, I didn't know that.
yeah,
Huh.
romances, happily ever after.
Mm-hmm.
If it doesn't end happily, it's not a romance.
Yeah,
It's a love story.
that's true.
So there's a difference. There's a difference between a love story and a romance. A romance, happily ever after, one guy, one girl, that kind of thing. So you have to know these things if you're going to write. I have people who come to me and say they wrote a romance. And when I read the story, I'm like, no, you didn't write a romance. You wrote a love story. It's
Yeah.
fine. Or you wrote women's fiction, which is fine. But, we can't market it as a love story, the romance, because it's not romance.
Unless it's like Romeo and Juliet, that was a tragedy.
Yeah, that's a tragedy. People think of Romeo and Juliet, oh, that's a love story. No, it's a tragedy. They die at the
They die.
end.
Oh, we just gave it away, didn't we? I think
Oh,
everybody's
well,
read that by now.
I hope so, But Shakespeare's not coming after us, so don't worry about it.
Yeah, I think we're safe from him right now. So let me ask you, all of your books you've written. So what inspired you to write your first book?
Well, the Killer series is because I grew up with these type of people. I grew
Oh,
up in the
really?
South Bronx in the time when you needed a gang to cross the street.
Oh,
You
really?
didn't
Oh,
go.
wow.
Yeah, it was. I grew up in Fort Apache in the South Bronx, and they called it Fort Apache Well, a lot of the New York neighborhoods have names for them. You have Little
Unofficial
Italy, you have
names.
this, yeah. So it's either because of the people that live there or because of what goes on there.
Mm.
And I grew up in Fort Apache, and they called it Fort Apache because they said it was like cowboys and Indians every night. And
In
it
real
was.
life.
Yeah, it was. It was, I tell people I grew up in a war zone, which is why I don't like war. Yeah,
Good reasoning.
yeah. So, but then I moved out of there and I moved into a mob neighborhood. So I
One to
moved,
another.
yeah, I moved from, Fort Apache gang territory to a mob territory. And some of my friends were mobsters and, sons of mobsters and just waiting for that. We used to call them the junior mafia. Some of these guys who were like in their teens and everything,
Oh, sure.
trying
Just
to be,
starting out.
yeah, trying to be tough and macho and all
Yeah.
this kind of stuff. And we used to call them, yeah, we used to call them the junior mafia. Yeah, you're going to be a mafia. Yeah, sure, you're going to, do this and do that. So, and these are the people I based the book on. Uh, what people are like in that life. So I wrote it from the idea of the criminal, because the
Oh, I
the other
see.
thing is
Yeah.
people always would say when they see this guy come up on TV and he's finally being arrested, oh, he was such a nice guy. I didn't know he was into that. And because, they keep that life secret.
Yeah.
If you're going to be a criminal, you got to keep a secret.
Sure.
And when people find out about these people and they're like, yeah, that guy was a nice family man. He went to work 9 to 5, came
Mm-hmm.
home, you know. And one of the things they used to tell me was, hey, don't cause trouble here. We used to have parties and we used to, me and my
Sure.
friends used to do some things and, you
Sure.
know,
Everyone
and one
has.
time I remember the guy's father, came sitting in his house and he go, you know what? You bring a lot of cops to the neighborhood. We don't like that. we
Stop that.
understand you're young, having fun, but keep it down. And I was like, yes, okay. Yeah, sure.
Yes, sir. Yeah.
I understand. Yes. So, so I knew these type of people. I knew what goes on some of these things. And so I decided to pay an homage to that lifestyle. I knew people was into running numbers and doing this and doing that, so put it all together and here it goes, this 4-book thing about how these people go from teenagers to full grown adult international criminals, and
Sure.
what you would do to them and what you should not do to them. And a lot of not do to them.
There's a lot, probably more no's than
Yeah,
do's. So you get a lot of influences that way from your real life experiences.
yeah. And Pegasus, which like I said, I wrote in the 1980s.
Let's
I
bring
got
that up real quick while we're talking about it, ladies and gentlemen. He's talking about this book right here. Okay, tell us about Pegasus.
all right. Pegasus I wrote with the idea of it takes place in like 2050s, thereabouts.
2050s. All right.
Yeah. So it's a near future because when I think about writing sci-fi, I don't like to write in the far flung future, like 300 years from now,
Yeah, sure.
because it's almost impossible to figure out what's going to be going on with any kind of a surety that this is going to be the world. And you
Sure.
could pretty much write anything 300 years from now. And if you look back in history, 300 years ago, telephones would have been an amazing idea. Be
Mm-hmm.
able to talk to somebody halfway around the world or something like that.
Uh-huh.
And cell phones would have been just magic, So
Oh, wow. Yeah, they would have been.
yeah. So I picked up the idea, okay, let's jump ahead a couple of generations. So I picked like 3 generations ahead. And where would the world be? Because everybody was talking about, the 21st century. After all, as we're coming closer to the turn of the century, everybody talking about the 21st century. So my then wife, who asked me, what did I think of what was happening? And what was happening was the SALT treaties were coming up. They were talking about getting rid of the strategic nuclear weapons, which is what the SALT treaty was. So with the limitation of bringing down, how many nuclear weapons we have, how many multiple warheads, and all that kind of stuff. So I said, we're not really going to have all-out nuclear war, although it looks like we're closer to that today than we were
Yeah,
back
we're
then.
kind of getting kind of a little scary there.
Hopefully, that part of the book doesn't come true.
Yeah.
But it was like until we have someplace to go, and I mean really someplace to go, another planet that we can live on, we're not going to have a nuclear war. It's a no-win situation.
Yeah.
So
There's no winners in that.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, but I also came up with the idea of global company, globalization, all the countries themselves, interchanging and
We're
working
seeing
together.
that. Yep.
Yeah, we're seeing that now. I came up with a little idea that we now call 3D printing, which was the space fighters,
Really? Oh,
which
wow.
would build these spaceships and these space colonies in space, but they sort of like print them, like 3D printing. They extrude the materials
Oh,
and
wow.
the structures and everything. So
Uh-huh.
you don't have anybody actually working building these things. You have robots and these what I call space spiders, which were spinning webs and putting out the beams and putting out all the structures, which is how they wind up building Pegasus, which is a 25-mile long spaceship that they wind up taking parts of the Earth and moving them into the spaceship so they can go to the nearest star system, which is
Wow.
Alpha Centauri. So we also found
That
planets
is
now
awesome.
that exist around these uh, other stars.
We have.
Yeah, which at the time it was only theoretical that there would be planets, and everybody, well, anybody who was somewhat into space travel figured they got to be other planets. We can't have the
Yeah.
only solar system with
We're
planets.
not alone. I
Yeah,
believe that.
yeah.
So
So that
you wrote this
yeah,
book nearly 40 years ago, and yet you predicted a lot of things that's happening right now.
yes. And let's hope the nuclear war part doesn't happen.
Yeah, let's don't do the day after type thing, you know.
No, no.
So Pegasus, a journey to New Eden. Oh, well, that sounds like a must read right there.
Thank you.
So let me ask you, just on average, I know each book that you write is different. How long does it usually take? I'm not talking about the publishing, but like when you have an idea for a book and you start, on your computer or you start writing it down, how long does it take you to finish it? Does it take a year, 2 years? I mean, how long does it really on average take, or is there a certain time frame at all?
It usually takes about 2 years, I would
Two
say,
years to write a
average. It
good book.
depends on the story, but it usually takes a good year to 2 years to write it. Uh, when I write, after I write the initial draft, I usually put it away, and then I come back to it a couple of months later and read it again so that I can see
It's a good
how my
idea.
idea panned out. Because when you're writing stuff, sometimes you're in the heat of it, and you leave things out. You didn't remember to put that in. You come back later, 2 days later, you go, oh, I got the great idea that I should have put in there. So, it, as you write, it sometimes things percolate, as I say, ideas percolate. Now, I have started with two different forms of writing. When I
Okay,
when I wrote not Pegasus, the Emerald Lady,
let me
I
bring that
wrote
up. Okay, that one. Yes.
yeah,
Uh-huh.
that one. Now that one I wrote as a NaNoWriMo mode book. And NaNoWriMo mode is a contest that comes up every November, and you
Okay.
write 50,000 words within a month. So it's like 1,666 words a day.
Oh, a day.
A day.
Oh,
So you
wow.
have no time to edit. You have no time to go back.
Mm.
It's just pour it out your head. Just pour it onto the paper. And so I wrote that book in a month. Uh,
1 month.
1 month
Wow.
to get it all out of your head in 1 month because you only have 1 month to do it. And then of course it takes you another year to actually get the story right
Sure.
and to fix it up. But that's a fantasy. So sometimes we're going to do a new way of writing. Because my usual way of writing is I write a couple of chapters, I go back, I read them, I edit them, I write a couple more, I go back, I read, edit, and I go back and
Mm.
forth, back and forth, back and forth until
Juggling.
I reach the end. Yeah, until I reach the end of the book, and then I put the book down and I come back and couple a month, 2 months, 3 months later, and then read the whole thing and start the whole process over again. Start editing and
Wow.
writing and second drafting and all that kind of stuff. But for this book, because I was doing it through NaNoWriMo,
Mm-hmm.
which stands for the National Novel Writing Month.
I was going to ask you, what is that?
Yeah. And I missed it a couple of years because it comes up in November and I never think about it until I'm in the middle of November. And then I said, Donna, I wanted to do NaNoWriMo. So when I finally did it, I decided I was going to write in something that I never done before, in a genre that I did not write before. That way would force me not to write the way I usually write, which is back and
Good
forth,
idea.
back and forth. So it's like, okay, I'll pick a genre I haven't touched yet. So I decided to write The Emerald Lady.
Can you give us a synopsis of this novel?
Yeah, it's
Okay.
a pirate mermaid love story that takes place during the golden age of piracy.
Oh, kind of like what, Pirates of the Caribbean or along that genre?
Somewhat of the Pirates of the Caribbean type of thing. I'm a pirate by heart and nature.
Okay, we'll call
So
you Jack Sparrow then.
uh, I always love pirate movies. I love swashbuckling type
Those
stories.
are good movies, yeah.
Yep. So I bought myself a ship, sailboat. I don't like motorboats and stuff. They're noisy, smelly.
Yeah,
I have
uh-huh.
myself a sailboat. So, and I decided I would write this story. And I wrote it for my editor. And when I was talking to her about, what should I do? I want to do this and everything. And I told her, you know what? I'm going to write a pirate mermaid love story. Not a romance,
But
but a
yeah,
love story.
Pirates
And
and Mermaids. That sounds
Pirates and
interesting.
Mermaid, and a little bit of a dragon thrown in at the end because it's a fantasy. You can't really have a
Yeah,
fantasy
yeah.
without a dragon.
Kind of sounds like the Sinbad movies. Remember the old Sinbad
Yep.
movies? So that's kind of what it
Yep.
sounds like to me, too.
So they go all over the Caribbean and America, and it takes place during the American Revolution, which is the golden age of piracy. So it's a little bit of a
Oh.
historical novel. And as I was finishing the novel, I decided this had to be a trilogy. So I'm
Oh.
working on two more books. The Ruby Cradle is the next one coming out, which is what I'm working on now. And then after that, the Diamond Warrior.
Wow, you. I don't see how you're getting the time. And when do you sleep, James?
Around 2, 3 o'clock in the morning.
She'll win 5.
Yeah, I try to get a couple hours in a night. But
Another question I'm going to ask you about your writing. What literary pilgrimages have you gone on?
uh, pilgrimage. Well, I went to California at one time to become a screenwriter because I figured, I'm going to write books. That decided, what? I think I'm going to write movies.
Hollywood, right?
So I went to Hollywood.
Oh,
That was
wow.
one of the reasons why I went. Another reason would be because, I had to leave town.
Okay. Hey, that's a good reason. Good
Yeah,
reason as any.
it was a good idea to leave town at that time. So it was like, I think I'll go to California and write movies. And then I got there and everything and found out. First off, everybody told me, well, what do you like to write? I like to write books. You should go to New York. Yeah, I just came from New York. And then I found out I really didn't like writing movies. I didn't like writing screenplays. It was too much formalized writing,
Uh-huh.
uh, too much formats and not enough telling of the story. Not the way I tell the story anyway.
Yeah.
So that was one. I went to Egypt with my
You've been
wife.
to Egypt.
Yes,
Oh,
I went to
wow.
Egypt with my wife. It was her dream vacation to go to, and because of the Killer series, part of the story was going to take place in Egypt. Like I said, they become international
That's
criminals,
interesting.
and he becomes a arms dealer. Morris
Oh,
Morris
wow.
becomes an arms dealer. That's where he goes with his life. Nikki, of course, stays in the mafia, and his desires is to become the Godfather. But Morris, he works in different areas, and because he's a warlord, he
Mm-hmm.
decides he's going to become this arms dealer, and he becomes an international arms dealer. And one of the things was
Oh,
that I went
wow.
to Egypt because I first off I like Egypt. It's a
I like
wonderful
history, so
place.
Egypt would be right up my alley.
Yeah, it's a wonderful place to go. And we went during the Arab Revolution, the Arab summer when everything was shut down.
Oh, wow.
And it was great. Go, there was hardly no tourists, so we was able to go in and out of places with no problem. The only problem was that when they decided to crack down on the protesters and stuff like that, we were still there,
Oh,
and it got
oh,
very hairy
I
getting out.
bet.
There were tanks and things on the street.
Tanks?
Oh yeah, yeah. They had tanks on the street. They
Ooh.
have army. They have militia people there.
Oh,
We're trying to
no.
get out of Egypt because it
Yeah.
was our time to leave, and we're going through checkpoints. And one time, we get out, and these guys are sitting there with the machine gun pointing at the cab driver because only the cab driver could be out,
Oh,
and he's driving
man.
up to the airport, and we get stopped by the army. Then we get stopped by guys in black robes or black jumpsuits or whatever they were, you know.
Ooh.
And my
Ooh.
wife is telling them they can't do this. I'm like, shut up. They can do whatever they want.
Yeah, they do.
They have
Exactly.
machine guns. If they want to look in the bag, let them look. you know, as long as they're not taking you somewhere, I'm not saying
That's
anything.
fine. Yeah.
Well, we don't have to get out this cab. I'm okay. And so we went. And that I when she wanted to go to Egypt, I said, oh yeah, let's go because I want to put that in the book. That part of the book is
Wow.
the take place in Egypt, and him selling Stinger missiles to the Muhajir because it's that period of time, the 1980s or so,
Sure.
and so he developed this guidance system for weapons. It winds
Wow.
up being part of the Stinger missiles.
Well, you've had an, interesting adventures, James. You make my life look boring. Oh, I bet that was fun though. Just
It was,
Egypt period. Oh wow.
and the idea is you don't really know a place until you've been to a place. Like if you've never been to the desert, you really don't know what it's like. So it's hard to describe. It's much different than what you see on TV or in the movie. You hear music playing in the movies. They're trekking across the thing,
Yeah.
Lawrence of Arabia. You get out there in the desert, there is nothing. There is no sound. The wind,
Just
no
as
nothing.
quiet. Just as quiet as can be.
It's
Oh
as
wow.
quiet as it could be. The wind is blowing, but
Wow.
there's nothing to rustle.
Mm.
So it's like, wow, this is pretty much desolate and hot.
Wow. And I bet scorching hot. Yeah.
Yep.
Well, James, I'm going to bring up your website for our audience. This is www.rockhillpublishing.com. So, what would people, if they clicked on that, what would they see? Or what all do you have on your website?
Well, you will see, first off, all our books that we published.
Mm-hmm.
My books and all my other authors are up there. You'll see our bios. Um, right now, you can't really submit to us because we're working on other things. So we
Sure.
close the submissions after a while because we have enough submissions for the year to keep us busy. So we close out that. But we also have not a blog page, a newsletter. So you can
Oh,
subscribe to
that's
the
good.
newsletter. So you can see what's coming up, what we're doing. We do one every month. If you subscribe to the newsletter, then you get to download a free ebook of your choice from one of our authors.
That's nice.
We usually run a monthly special on one of the authors. Right now, it's Mark Everglade. His book is what's his book called? Hemisphere. He's gonna kill me for that. Hemispheres.
Hemisphere, yep.
and his book is on sale for 10% off. So you put in the code, it'll tell you on the front page, but it's sci-fi 10, and you get 10% off the cover price.
It's a good deal.
Yep. So click the link, go there, buy the book, get 10% off.
Well, I was going to ask you. That was my next question. I was going to ask for our audience, how they buy your product. But is this the best place to go, the Rock Hill Publishing, or is there any other place I can go, like an Amazon or anything else?
You can go to Amazon, you can go to Barnes and Noble, you can go
Barnes
all
and
over the
Noble.
place. Yeah, we're all over the place. But if you buy it from Rock Hill Publishing,
Right here.
right there, the authors get a better percentage of the money than if they buy it from Amazon.
And let me go and promote that too, ladies and gentlemen. We always want to promote, authors, and people that's going into business for themselves and their creators. So why don't you come here if you're interested in James's books and every other author? Go here because I'm not taking it away from the big publishers, but there's more of a percentage of people that do their creativity. So I would encourage you, if you're going to buy a book from them, go to this rockhillpublishing.com.
Yeah. I'll tell you a little secret about Amazon. Uh, they kind of like make you give a discount to the sellers
Mm-hmm.
of the book. So the person who buys the book doesn't get the discount. Amazon gets the discount,
Oh, really?
which
Oh,
then
wow.
cuts into the author's profit because that discount is coming off the author's part of it. I can't help that. I can't stop that. So when you go to like, Amazon, whatever, Amazon's not paying full price for that book. You're paying full price for the book. Amazon is not. And so what happens is the author gets a smaller cut of his work.
Oh, that's not good.
No,
Mm-mm.
it's not. I hate that. When you ask me what's about the business to say, that's the one thing I really hate about it. The authors are always getting the short end of the stick, which is
Yeah.
why I created Rock Hill Publishing to help authors get a bigger piece of the pie.
Well, that would be my next question. If there's someone who's now, we got quite a great audience watching live, but even the people that watch this after the fact, if they've written something that they think, what, this is published worthy, what would you suggest they do if they wanted to contact you? Would they just send you an email that says, "Hey, I've got this"? How do they submit their work to you? I mean, what would be the steps for a up and coming author?
Okay, when we open up our submission page again, there will be a submission link on the page.
There
There
will
will
be.
be a
Okay.
tab. But I'll tell you right now, when you get to that tab, we're going to ask you for the first two chapters, one of the chapters in the middle, and the last chapter of your story.
Okay.
Okay, we're going to ask you for a synopsis of the story, so we know what the story is all about. We're going to ask you for a character breakdown, and we don't want every single character in the story. We
Mm-hmm.
want the major character and the minor character. The if you give us 5 or 6 people in the story that play a major role in the story, that's what we're looking for. So
Okay.
when you do the submission, that's what it's going to be. Submit it in Word document. I think it's New Times Roman
The font.
12.
Okay. Yeah. Uh
Yeah,
huh.
follow whatever's up there. If you say I heard you on the Van Buren show, and I would like to send you this, look up the email address. There's a thing to contact the publisher or the editor. Send me an email and tell me what your story is about, and I'll make sure I'll let you know when we're ready for submissions.
Okay, we'll remember that. In fact,
Yeah.
we have a comment, what you just said earlier about the Amazons and the big ones of the world. I'm going to show you a comment from one of our live audience, and this might ring true for you too. Gene Hudson says, I read a lot, and I remember when those companies went belly up and never paid the writers. So many people that didn't get paid. So many started their own publishing company and self promoted. Can you relate to that, or have you heard those stories too?
Yes. As a matter of fact, one of my writers, Myron Edwards, he's in Cyprus. He published his first book with the guy in Cyprus, and the company went belly up, and so
Oh,
he then
wow.
had this story sitting out there, and he went and he found me on LinkedIn, and
Oh, that's good.
and that's how he found me. And he has like a three-part story, three-part book.
Oh,
So
wow.
I liked this book, and I said, yeah, okay, I'll take it on, I'll publish it. And I published this book, and then I published the next two. So he has Mistress of the Rock, which is about Aphrodite. It's a modern
Oh,
day
wow.
fantasy about Aphrodite, and it takes place right after the first Gulf War. And then he
Oh,
has
wow.
Scylla, The Revenge, and then the latest one that came out last year, 2021, um, which is what is it? Julie's Odyssey, which is you'll have to read it. It's a very interesting trilogy about what happened to this guy Richard Cole when he goes off to fight in the first Gulf War, and he winds up meeting up with Aphrodite. And the idea is the gods are still alive, still there, and gods and humans should not mix.
That's good advice, sounds like. Wow. Oh man, you've got a lot of talent. It sounds like, James, of just what you're telling me, you've got a lot of talented authors in your publishing company.
Oh
So
yeah,
it sounds like that your website's kind of what that's intriguing. I mean, we'll find some multiple books that we would be interested in. So, ladies and gentlemen, click on that right there. I mean, you can't click there, but enter that in
yeah.
your
Jot that
search.
down. Yes,
Yeah,
jot that down.
www.rockhillpublishing.com. Let me ask you, how long have you been? Now, I asked you earlier how long you've been writing, but how long have you been a publisher now? How long has that been?
About the same time.
Same time. All
Yeah,
right.
around the same time. I decided to publish my own book. I've been a writer much longer than I've been a publisher.
Oh,
You know,
okay.
I
All right.
like I said, I wrote the first book, Pegasus and Killer, uh, way back in the 1980s or so. But I only started publishing them. I'll tell you a funny story.
Oh, yes.
When I first started writing, uh, back in the 70s and 80s, when I really decided I was going to be a writer, and I started banging out these books and everything, I
Mm-hmm.
found it hard to find a publisher. You had to go get an agent, you had to do all the kind of stuff. But it was,
Red tape.
yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So then I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to shortcut this. I'm going to start writing short stories because I'll make a name for myself as a short story writer. It takes less time to write a short story than it does to
Mm-hmm.
write a book. So I'll write these short stories and I'll get those published. And then, at that point, I'll have a name and then I can publish books. Well, that took a while. And then I decided, okay, since I was in New York, which is the mecca of publishing, I took a job at night delivering the Times or Wall Street Journal, one of those two, very heavy papers. But I took it because I wanted to work the publishing row area of New York in Manhattan. So what I did was I went around delivering their papers, and I found out where all the publishing companies were and all the magazine companies were, and I was sliding my work underneath their doors.
Read it. Read it. Read
Yeah,
it.
here you go, read this. And so I got back some nice rejection letters, which was like,
Oh
sorry,
yeah.
but you need an agent, and that kind of stuff. Oh, this is an interesting story. Get an agent and then submit it, and all that kind of stuff. So, you know, and the funny thing is, living in New York all my life, I didn't know where the Empire State Building was. And one of the companies I was going to, of course, they have all these publishing companies in the
Oh
Empire
yeah.
State Building.
Sure.
And I'm walking around and I get the address. There's an address to go to, and I'm walking around, and the Empire State Building only had one door with the address on it, but all the other doors on the around that
Uh
block
huh.
have have addresses because it's this one on Fifth Avenue,
Wow.
this one on this street, and
Didn't know that. Wow.
I'm walking around. I'm walking around. Where the heck is this building? You know, and I finally stopped at the doorman, and I said, where is this address at? I can't find this place. Where is this place at? And he goes, right here. I said, what do you mean it's right here? This is the Empire State Building. He said, yes. And that address is the Empire State Building. It's around the corner, down the block is the other door. But being that it's like
Wow.
midnight, those doors
Yeah.
aren't
Exactly.
open.
That's funny. I did not know
And I
that.
did not know that was the Empire State Building either. I walked past that building 1,000 times and never knew that was.
Never occurred to you.
Yeah, and I looked up and said, "This is the Empire State Building," and he said, "Yes, it is. It says it right there on the marquee, Empire State Building." And I passed that building 1,000 times and did not know that was the Empire State Building.
When you don't know, you don't know. You know.
No,
We brought up something just now, and might be a good question for our audience in case whoever's watching this, and maybe they've got a good story, and maybe they're feeling really good about it, but they submit it to a publishing company, any publishing company, but they reject it. Um, will the publishing company tell the person why they rejected it, or they just say it's rejected with no explanation why?
it all depends. Sometimes you just get the form letter. Sorry, this is not for us. I
Okay.
must have got 1,000 of those.
Uh huh.
Sorry, this is not for us, and that doesn't really help you at all.
Doesn't tell you anything. Why
Yeah,
do you reject it? Yeah.
yeah,
Spelling, story, what? You know.
yeah. And then some people will send you a nice notice, say, "Hey, well, it's too long. It wasn't the format we wanted. It's a good story, but it's a science fiction. You sent it to a fantasy type of thing, that kind of thing where, you're out, wrong genre, nice story, wrong genre, and things like that. Now, if you send it to me, we always give you a review of the work.
Oh, see, that's what I was hoping you would say. You give a review of it. That's good.
Right. We tell you if we don't publish it, if we don't want to publish it for whatever reason, we tell you why. We tell you what your strong points are and what your weak points are in the story. And even if we do publish it, we still tell you what your strong points and weak points are in the story. So we will give you a review that is helpful and useful. So even if we don't publish it, we do want you to know why. Like I said, come in as a writer. That is the most helpful thing that you can get. Know what where your weak points and where your and it's all subjective. I mean, it's my opinion. You submit it to somebody else down the road, and they'll tell you, "Oh, this is the greatest thing I ever read." So one thing I would tell any writer out there: have thick skin. Okay.
Yeah, don't take it personally. I've heard that.
Don't take it personally, right?
Yeah.
They're judging your writing. They're not judging you. And
that's true.
It is subjective. Two people can read the same book. One person will hate it. Somebody would love it. Doesn't mean anything about the book. It's the words haven't changed. It's the people who read it. So
I'm going to ask. Have thick skin.
And just realize if they tell you something, if you hear that over and over again, it must be true. If one person says something about your book and everybody else says something great about your book, maybe that one person is wrong. Maybe he was looking at it the wrong way. But if you get 5 people to tell you the same thing about your book, take it. Okay? Listen to it. Yeah.
Well, we have a funny comment here. Mr. Lee 3PO, I would not suggest you be in. He says, I take it personally. Well, Mr. Lee 3PO, maybe you shouldn't write anything then.
Well, keep writing, Mr. 3PO, but, don't read those things. And definitely don't read reviews.
Yeah, exactly.
Personally. Don't read the reviews.
Well, I was going to ask you, can they resubmit? And what I mean by that, let's just say that somebody offers you a book, but it's the War and Peace. It's the bulletproof book. And maybe it's too long, and you say maybe it's too long. But can the author then maybe do their editing, maybe shorten it, and then can they resubmit it?
I usually tell people, if I really like the book and there's something wrong with it, or for one reason or another, I say, it's not right for me at this time, I usually tell them what's wrong with it and tell them to resubmit it.
So they can resubmit. It's not like no is no forever. Okay.
No. Unless I say no is no forever, because sometimes it'll be like, they write something and I'm like, that's just not what we publish. So, and then I tell them, it's like if you're writing Christian fiction, let's say, I don't publish Christian fiction. I publish other type of fiction and, this and that. But since it's not in my wheelhouse, I tell you, well, that's not in my wheelhouse. Find a Christian publisher and have them publish it. Or you send me poetry, I have a book of poetry. I haven't been in poetry in like 50 years. And I was only writing poetry to get laid. So my poetry wasn't all that great.
Hey, if it works, right? If it works.
It works, but, it's not real poetry,
I think of stuff that rhyme, but I do it because I'm just being funny. I'll think of a funny poem that, it's just ridiculous. I can't hardly be serious with my poetry. That's just me, though.
Actually, I am serious with my poetry, but I don't publish poetry anymore. I just kind of like stopped writing poetry. Now I write insightful pieces, not quite poetry. Again, you have to know the medium. So, and I'm not studying poetry and how it's written anymore. So it's like, okay, but I'll write insightful pieces,
Sure. Let me bring this up again for everybody. Was that your mascot, Rock Hill Publishing?
Yes, that's our mascot. That was done by my nephew.
Your nephew drew that?
Yes, I told Brad I needed a dragon and this and that. I wanted it on the Rock Hill dragon. Go for it. Give me that. And then this is all him. That's all I told him. I wanted the dragon sitting on a rock, overlooking like water, land, whatever. He did that.
Well, that was going to be my next question. Actually, now that we're on the subject, let me bring your books back. So, did you? I mean, I think you answered my question. Did you draw these, or did you hire someone to draw like your art on these books?
I did some of them. I did the first two,
Mm-hmm.
and I have my cover artist do the third, and she's doing the fourth one. So
Oh
I do
wow.
some of the book covers myself, and some of the book covers I farm out to other people. So I have a cover artist, and some of the books that you'll see on the website will be done by other people. They'll have their own cover artist that they say, well, I want this guy does my books, and he's really great, and I want him to do the cover art. And it's like, okay, fine, you know. I done some. I I'm very good at Photoshop now. I've been working in Photoshop for quite
Photos. Oh,
some time.
that's your best friend, I'm sure.
Oh yeah, yeah. And I spent a lot of time learning it, so I'm putting it to use.
Mm-hmm.
I draw horribly, but I'm good at Photoshop.
Oh, listen, I can't really draw a stick figure straight. That's just me, you know.
Yeah. So
So let's kind of just go over it now. Wait, let me show this again. We talked about some of your books, but what is upcoming? Now you said there was going to be a fourth book coming out of this one, correct?
right. So the fourth book is going to be called Killer with Ice Eyes.
Okay. And you said that this one you've got. This is going to be a trilogy as well.
Right. That's a trilogy. So as you see, this is called the Emerald Lady. The
Mm-hmm.
next one is going to be called the Ruby Cradle, and then the third one is called the Diamond Warrior.
Oh wow, that sounds very very interesting. And this book here, which you talked about, this is a standalone, but it sounds very
It's a
wow. It sounds very
standalone, but
interesting.
they're going to be like a prequel to it. Well, actually, it's not a prequel. It talks about a different section of the book, which is the penal colony. One of the first colonies, permanent colonies they create in space, is naturally a penal colony. You know, where we will send
Oh
people we don't
wow,
like anymore, and they're never coming back.
that
Yeah.
sounds very intriguing.
Well, if you notice, a lot of colonies and a lot of places are, that's the first thing they build is like some places send you're unwanted. America was like that. Australia was like that.
Australia, I was going to say, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yep. They ship you off. You're out of here, buddy. And so now, where would be the next penal colony? It'll be in space. We can put you out there, and you're never coming back.
Yeah, almost kind of sound like I'm aging myself, but the old was it Alien 3? Sigourney Weaver. They had a
Yeah.
penal colony in that movie. So, well, James, it's been a great interview. I'm looking
Thank you.
forward to seeing more of your stuff. And again, ladies and gentlemen, if you haven't been to that website already, I highly encourage you to go. RockHillPublishing.com. And you'll see not only James's books, but all the other authors he's promoting on that website. So, and again, I would encourage you to go to that website because you have the big corporations, but the authors see more residual if you go here. And
Yeah.
so we definitely want to help, small business authors. And so if you're going to buy these books and you're really, really intrigued, and if you've got something for yourself you'd love for James to read, this would be the place to go when he has that set up. So we're looking forward to seeing more and more of that. So, James, that's all I had. Again, I'm going to just kind of bring up your books again one at a time here. This again, ladies and gentlemen, there will be a fourth book of this. If you like pirates and you like mermaids and you even what do you say a dragon might be coming in
Dragons.
there,
Yep. Dragons.
there'll be a trilogy on that. So there's definitely a book. And this, I mean, they're all interesting, but James has really intrigued me with this one because man, to know that you've predicted something 40 years ago that's kind of coming true. Yeah, that is something that I'm probably going to be checking out. So definitely, James.
Thank you.
Okay, well, James, I appreciate you being on the Van Buren Variety Show, and we're looking forward to more of your great work. And again, on a personal note, congratulations for having a successful publishing company. It sounds like you're publishing or you're promoting a lot of authors who otherwise may not, got the break that they needed. So we appreciate that.
Yes, it is my pleasure, and I guess my calling. And
Well, we appreciate it, James. And thanks a lot for coming on tonight.
thank you for having me. It's been fun.
Have a good night.
Thanks.
And ladies and gentlemen, unfortunately, that's all we have for tonight. An hour just seems to go by so quickly on the Van Buren Variety Show. If you haven't already, would love for you to subscribe. That's Van Buren Variety, Van Buren Variety. And then you'll see my shows coming up once a week. Again, there might be some more shows coming during the week. In fact, there might be even a spinoff happening pretty soon. And so you definitely want to check that out. Next week, and even a few more weeks from that, it's going to be an all-music episode. I'm not going to tell you who the author is or who the performer is or the genre, but nothing but music the entire hour. So I'm looking forward to that, and I hope you do too. So again, this is Bob Van Buren for the Van Buren Variety Show. And just one more time, have a great St. Patrick's Day, everybody, and make sure you wear your green, unless, of course, you enjoy being pinched. Now, you might like to be pinched, so if you like people to pinch you wherever, then maybe you shouldn't wear green. But if you don't, then maybe wear a badge. But regardless, have a very safe and St. Patrick's Day, everyone. This is Bob Van Buren for the Van Buren Variety Show. Have a great night, everybody. Good night.